And we are live. Welcome to this week's podcast, the Fun v Tailgate Divisional Round, presented by Thunderblog Sports, a part of the Bullpen Cart Podcast Network, I guess is the right word. Sure. I, of course, am the G-Man. With me, as always, and my man, breaking it down, Matty D. What's up, buddy?
It's kind of like sad because football is technically coming to an end soon, but it's also amazing because it's the best time of year for some of the best games we've seen. And
Ramping up.
I expect this weekend to be just as great. But it's also kind of single tear comes to my eye when college football ends. As amazing as Monday was.
Oh my God.
And
incredible.
And most of the Oklahoma Georgia game was, and some of these great bowl games. Small tear drips down my face, knowing that some of these guys will never play college ball again. Sad. But
I know, it is a little sad.
But, I'll just jump right into it. Monday night, I was planning on – I was thinking, you know what, it's probably going to be a decent game, but I was trying to get to bed early, trying to be a good guy, and I had to stay up all night. I couldn't miss a moment, and it was incredible.
No, you couldn't. No, you absolutely couldn't. I thought it was going to be a little more straightforward than an overtime no cover. We got to remind that it was Bama +4 and they did not cover, or Bama -4. They did not cover. It was close with the Shankopotamus on at the very end.
Jesus.
Very reminiscent of a Jordy Cannell drive. I know that joke's been used a lot this week, but recycle it one more time.
It would have been covered if they had to kick a field goal in overtime, right? They won by 3 because they didn't have to kick the extra point. The extra point. Excuse me.
If they had gone first and kicked the extra point,
right?
In theory, they would have either won by 7. I mean, they would have won by 7 because Georgia wouldn't have kicked a field goal. Georgia would have gone for it.
I'm referring to like the final play, right?
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
They would have pushed. Yeah, it's like the Eagles not going for it against the Raiders.
Right. Gotcha.
And not presenting the cover. But yeah, the whole game itself. We're jumping to the very end. You know the score by now. It's Wednesday night. Game happened 2 nights ago, but Bama wins in a thriller. And kind of the opposite way of how we would have thought it would have gone, both in the fact that Georgia led really up until, 4 minutes were left, that Bama ties it up on a play that I was happy that I saw a Sports Illustrated article about it, because I turned to Emily thinking that the wide receiver might have gone offside, but it was too close to really call that in that type of moment.
Right. Well, I got to tell you, I've noticed a trend both in college and the pros where, particularly with shotgun snaps, I've seen a lot of tackles and receivers and running backs.
Tackles do it all the time.
Right.
They're always
they're basically guessing the snap count, and it happens so fast that I understand.
Sometimes it's egregious.
Right. I also saw, the other thing I noticed with Georgia in particular in this game, the running backs in the shotgun tended to start leaning forward like before the snap of the ball. And yeah. I'm not saying that should be a penalty. By the definition of the law, it is. But it was irrelevant to the play in this case. I think it was a running back, Najee Harris, who's probably going to be a Heisman Trophy winner. He's only a freshman. He was in his small amount of time last night on Monday. I thought he was fantastic, very explosive, sudden back. But I'm with you. I don't think it should have been called. It was so close. No. A little early, but
I'm burying the lead too, though, that Tuva, however you pronounce his name, and I cannot pronounce his last name, comes in relief for Jalen Hurts, who looked terrible.
He did.
And our boy, maybe the college football flying Hawaiian, maybe we can start that, comes in and takes this game over, leads Bama back. You kind of knew it, and I was tweeting out on our account for the Thunder blog, Thunder BLG, if you don't follow it, that Georgia really needed to get a touchdown because Nick Saban's the master of halftime adjustment, and you saw that in this game. You saw an exaggerated version of it because he literally brought in the relief arm. But it showed it, and it shows why he's won 5 titles in 9 years. 9 years. You know how long that is, Matt? It's how long we've been friends.
I know. It's incredible. Yeah. That's just domination.
Yeah.
It's just unreal, that kind of domination. The one thing I will say, that fourth down play, watch it slowly, the pass. So Calvin Ridley ends up catching the ball. He's coming from the right. He's running a crossing pattern. He wants him right away, but he's not open on the initial read. But he's being sacked as the play. He's being chased out of the pocket. So he has a half a second to throw, and it looks like he just throws it up. Now, you watch the play, and Calvin Ridley comes running, and he catches it. But if you watch the quarterback's head, his eyes can't physically see Calvin to the right. It appears like he's actually throwing a jump ball to the running back, Najee Harris, and he throws it behind him in the back of the end zone. But Ridley's speed takes him right into the path of the ball. I watched it a couple times. Me and Papa D determined that I would. They're never going to tell you this, right? No. But I think he was going for the running back. You have to throw it up, and you can't take a sack on fourth down. So you have to throw it up. And I honestly think that he was trying to throw it to the running back, threw it up in the air, and Calvin Ridley, as a junior receiver would be, number one receiving prospect in the draft, comes out of nowhere to pick that ball, to catch the ball for the touchdown. So a little bit of luck on that one for me. Also, I don't ever blame the refs. There were some missed calls, against Alabama that weren't called. The punt block looks like a false start. Definitely think that one was a false start. Yeah. But once again, Georgia did the same thing that Oklahoma did the game before. The second half, they got conservative. They started handing the ball off. The wild dog. Jake Fromm
it's the exact same thing.
Right.
You
Jake
had a great quarterback first half.
Right.
And then
let him throw. Let him throw the ball. He is really good at those intermediate level throws where he was able, because of their running ability, they kept running it so the linebackers were a half step up. He kept putting it right over the linebackers on perfect throws. And yet, for some reason, they just decided, hey, let's just run one right now. Look, they've got three, really, maybe even a fourth, all-world running backs there. So I don't blame them. We're going to talk about one in a second here. But they were dominating in the passing game early in that game. They were embarrassing a great Alabama defense. And then all of a sudden, they stopped. They got conservative. They stopped being aggressive. And guess what happens? Alabama comes out. Nick Saban goes, you know what, Jalen, 25-2 as a starter. This Hawaiian's going to come in. I'm just going to have him throw the ball all over the place. And guess what? He did, and it worked. I mean, it was a brilliant move by Saban. Risky, but brilliant. And nothing against Jalen Hurts. So I still think I don't care how good. I know the defense is legendary. So 25-2 as a starter. And the SEC player of the year last year as a true freshman. He clearly has some talent. But I also don't understand. It didn't seem like they opened the game plan for him. Then they bring the other kid in and they do. Although what I also thought with Jalen Hurts is he's got that mentality of as soon as the pocket breaks down, he's just going to scramble. Where instead he needs to be doing what is it Tua? Is that his first name? I'm not even going to try the last name.
Tua.
Tua, as soon as the pocket broke down, started to scramble and look for the pass. Because as soon as you put your head down, everybody converges. If you keep your head up, everybody out there is got to stay with their guy. So now all of a sudden you have more room to run even. So, maybe Hurts takes that as a learning lesson. Don't know if he transfers right away, but I think that's maybe an eventual possibility. I think Saban's pretty true to his word. The two of them will have a competition in the summer. They'll both probably play early in the season, and then he'll decide on one, and it'll probably be Tua if he continues to grow like we saw. I mean, to be able to pass like that and to take the chances that he did, I mean, he looked off. The safety he looked off is tied for his career in interceptions at Georgia. He's like a fifth or fourth year safety. He looks that safety off like a professional and then zings the ball to the other side. It was incredible to watch his ability to throw. So,
are you talking about the last play?
Yeah, the last play, the overtime.
You're talking about the last play?
Yeah. He looks off. No. I think it's Sanders.
Well, it's crazy too because the cornerback takes basically a step, and you can see it too, especially once they finally started showing the replay from the end zone angle. You see him take that step in, and that's all he needed because he takes the step in and a step left, and boom, he's gone. He's right. He looked off the safety, so by the time the safety realizes, shit, the ball's here.
Yeah,
that's the extra 2 steps he needed, and
right. I got to tell you,
game,
safety, looked like a freshman on that play because everything that's happening on that play, there's one guy deep on his side. The other safety is over the top on everything else that's happening. All the other receivers are on the other side of the field. That's a really poor – I mean, I'm not trying to trash a guy who actually had a pretty good game, almost had that pick late in the back of the end zone. But Sanders, you can't – oh, you just can't do that.
Yeah.
Although, did they get lucky because Alabama's excellent kicker? Absolutely. Well, I will say this. Watch the replay. He definitely slipped on the turf. But you know what? While that shows you why he missed, it doesn't excuse that. He's had plenty of time to adjust to the turf. Can't flip there.
Blankenship nailed a 51-yarder.
Right. Yeah.
I mean.
And Papanastis or Papanustis or whatever his name is, he's got that's like soul crushing kind of miss. That's the kind of miss that means in 5 years from now you don't make it to the. He probably has an NFL leg. He probably that's the kind of thing that travels with you, and like that's a Blair Walsh move right there. You can't.
That's like the end of. Here's a throwback name for you. Mike Vanderjagt. Remember when he started doing that in the NFL?
And then he missed that one field goal that was really important. He never was the same guy. It's all because
he never was the same when he was at the Cowboys. He missed like a 20-yarder and he was done.
There's some exceptions. So like Justin Tucker has an elite leg. And then, like Mike, who's the guy? Sebastian Janikowski, Matt Prater. They have elite legs, but it's like Steven Gostkowski, the Patriots. He doesn't have an elite leg. Nothing is a bad leg, but he doesn't have the greatest leg of all time. It's all mental. Vinatieri, it's all a mental game for kickers because it's just muscle memory. And can they do that at the biggest stage? And they didn't do. He did, but you know what? Alabama won, and about 24 players in that field. I would say 22 players in that field are all going to the NFL this year. Both sides. I mean, it was loaded. It's crazy how many guys in that game and how many true freshmen were playing in that game that will be drafted in the first round in a year or two from now. So, I mean, Jake Fromm, to me, he's got to be the 2020 first overall pick right now. That's how good he looked.
Yeah, holy shit.
Yeah. Now, he missed a couple throws in the second half. Don't get me wrong, but I thought that was more scheme than anything. He looked like the real deal the whole way.
Yeah, I mean, he has all year, and it was that was the question as soon as he came in, whatever, week 3 or whatever it was. But I mean, he stepped it up. He stepped up huge in the
week
college football playoff.
Eason got
hurt.
Was
it week 1?
Eason got hurt in the third series of week 1, and in came.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Rumor has it, by the way, Notre Dame because that was his first start. Was that week 2?
Yeah, week 2 or 3.
Doesn't matter. We can look back at that.
Well,
in the offseason.
By the way, fun fact, Eason, apparently rumors he's transferring to the University of Washington.
Oh.
He was like a Heisman candidate, like a draft pick kind of guy. He was a really good player. Yeah. He'll go there. He'll have to sit out next year. Jake Browning is back, the guy who was a Heisman hopeful 2 years ago. He's back for his senior season. So Chris Peterson will go from Jake Browning to Eason. And so he's going to have another quarterback coming right in the wings. I think Eason's a sophomore or a junior, so plenty of time there for him too. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see for the University of Washington. Big win for them. Eason's from Washington, so it makes sense. Now, of course,
nice.
He denied it. Peterson denied it. Washington denied it because they can't say anything because it's illegal. But he's going there. It makes sense. I would want to play for
tampering. What is it? Just a recruiting violation?
It's just a recruiting violation. You can't say anything. You can't because essentially what would happen is, I mean, I get it because if that was the case, Saban would be going to all these talented kids who were backups and be like, "Hey, come to Alabama. I'll give you a starting job." Great idea. That's something I would do. So, yeah.
I know that the stats been thrown around there. The fact that no Alabama player that's been there for 3 years since 2000, I think it is, hasn't won a championship. How crazy is that? It's 2018.
That's incredible.
Freshman,
right?
That I mean, we all know the math.
I understand. I mean, that's unreal. And his team. Well,
he didn't become the Alabama head coach until 10 years ago.
Right.
As well.
Right. People forget
it must be Nick Saban players then, because he was LSU for a little bit.
Yeah, one of his championships was at LSU.
Yeah.
I think they come right in as the favorites next year. They are losing some serious talent. We saw that Deron Payne, their excellent defensive tackle, Calvin Ridley, the number 1 wide receiver prospect, Bo Scarborough, Minka Fitzpatrick is expected. They're losing a couple corners. Aver and Wallace are 2 starters. Deshaun Hand's gone. But Jalen Hurts and Tua are back. Damian Harris has announced he's coming back. They've got 2 young linebackers. I mean, they are coming back. To me, they'll be ranked number 1 to start the year.
Yeah, pretty easy to think.
Right. I'm going to tell you, it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same couple teams. Clemson will be up there. Ohio State, Oklahoma, Georgia,
Florida State.
All back up. Well, we'll see with Florida State because they've got a new coach. I think true. The one team that's going to be ranked high coming into the season, if I had to guess, look for West Virginia.
Yeah, I've seen that on a couple of them. I mean,
right, Will Grier will be back.
A lot of players. They made some noise in the Big 12, not really a ton, but
right. But overall, Will Grier, David Stills will be back. Yeah, that's a team. And then Auburn, Jared Stidham is back. He announced he's coming back. That's a huge return for them. Definitely a team to be eyeing and looking at. That team's going to be pretty stinking good coming into next year. I think LSU really depends on how DeAndre Francois comes back from that brutal injury.
Yeah, that's true.
Will be mine. And by the way, I'll let you know, don't count out Michigan, and here's why.
Because the Ole Miss.
Well, yeah, Shea Patterson, if he can get on campus and get eligible, oh my God, that's a huge. They're not having the same.
That's the key, though. They don't have a quarterback without him.
Right. Well, I mean, I saw a little bit from Brandon Peters, but I don't love him. And they are losing Maurice Hurst at nose tackle. He's going to be a top pick. Mike McCray is their leader at linebacker. He's gone. But they're going to have some 7 offensive starters, 8 defensive starters back. Definitely a team. They could take over a Penn State or Michigan State kind of team this year coming in.
The defense isn't a concern. They returned 1 player this year, and
they were fantastic. Right,
with Dr. Sack.
Right,
that's the coordinator.
But it's really the offense, and so they're. And I think what's his name? The running back Hington announced he'll be back. He was pretty good. So it's a big year. By the way, they play Notre Dame like week 1 or 2.
No, it's week 1.
Week 1. That's a scary game.
At Notre Dame too.
That's a scary game for both of those coaches.
Well, it's great because they're bringing that back, which is something that kind of stunk about the Notre Dame semi-ball deal. For those that don't know, Notre Dame plays in the ACC for everything but football. Part of their agreement of joining the ACC was that they have to play, I think it's 5 ACC opponents a season, and they can still be an independent. Maybe it's 6. We'd have to fact check that. But because of that, they had to drop some of their traditionally played rivalry games like Michigan State, mainly a lot of their Big Ten opponents. They still play Stanford. They still play USC. Obviously, this year they had a big win against USC and then a loss to Stanford. They still play Navy. I think that's every year. And then they incorporate other games through it to have a non-conference schedule. But it's fun to see the Michigan game come back because that was always a fun September game, kind of in the pre-top 5 week 1 or 2 matchups era that we've seen in the late BCS, early CFP era of college football. The Notre Dame Michigan game always was kind of that proxy. There's always a random ACC game when conferences still were backloading their schedules and waiting until non-conference play ended, the Big Ten most notoriously being one of them. But it's exciting to see. I mean, it's certainly a good test for them. Kind of long story short, I think it's going to be a lot of the same, but we'll see how it goes. Because, I mean, Wilton Speight doesn't get hurt this year. We're this close to having Michigan, beat Michigan State.
Yeah.
Penn State, because Penn State throttled them. But, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I think Wisconsin, Wisconsin's still going to have a lot of guys schedule, but they're bringing everybody back, basically.
Right.
So,
let me lay it out for you. Week 1 of next year, I just pulled the schedule. So Alabama, Louisville, but now that Lamar Jackson's leaving, that loses a little bit. Michigan, Notre Dame.
Yep.
How about this? How about this is a fun game? Opening weekend in Atlanta, Auburn versus Washington.
Ooh.
That's a I don't even know how they got that on the schedule. That's a great game. LSU, Miami in Arlington, Texas.
I like that a lot. I like that more than Auburn, Washington.
That's a very cool game.
Yeah. Yep.
Virginia Tech, Florida State. Virginia Tech will definitely be ranked. Florida State probably will
be really good next year. We didn't even mention them.
Yeah, that's an interesting game there. Tennessee, West Virginia doesn't really lick my chops that much because I think Tennessee's going to struggle, but it's cool to see West Virginia.
Yeah,
UCLA, because of the Chip Kelly factor, they play Cincinnati, which is a terrible matchup, but it's a fun, interesting. But how about your upset special week 1? How about Florida Atlantic and Lane Kiffin visiting? It's Oklahoma, not Alabama. But what's going to happen now? Kyler Murray is an excellent recruit from Texas A&M, transferred over, so we'll see. But could be that upset special week 1 because the Lane train was rolling this year at Florida Atlantic. Now he's going to get more of his own guys. But I know you like LSU Miami. That's a great Southern game. I love when teams from very far apart play. So to me, Auburn Washington is just interesting to me.
The only thing that concerns me about that is that Washington really struggled week 1 this year at Rutgers. Now, Rutgers wasn't the shithole that they've been since they joined the Big Ten. They were still pretty bad. But they weren't a complete pushover this year. They still got toppled. But they struggled coming east week 1. Granted, I mean, it's a bigger opponent to step up to. So we'll see. But, yeah, I mean, LSU Miami, Coach O versus Mark Richt. How can you not like some good old Southern boys just battling at the good old college football game at the 18th Stadium? Go Tigers, go Tigers.
It's going to be fascinating.
It's going to be great. I can't wait. I mean, we have a lot of other sports between now and then.
Yes.
We'll jump to the NFL in a second, but you mentioned a couple draft picks. We talked quarterbacks last week, but in the essence of wide receivers coming out this and Calvin Ridley, are there any other ones that we should be keeping an eye out on or expecting to hear news on?
Well, I mean, the one guy I wanted to point out, I mean, and I'll jump to the wide receivers in a sec, but the one guy that I thought is, I mean, I'm Sonny Michel of Georgia. If you watch the game, he spent a lot of time with Nick Chubb. Now, Nick Chubb's the second leading rusher all time in the SEC, so a very good player, but he doesn't have the suddenness of Sonny Michel that I thought. I just, when I watched him run, I was just like, this is the guy that you want as your player. He just looked like the kind of guy that needs to be on an NFL football field, like right away, kind of thing. So I was pretty excited. I would love to see where he kind of ends up in the running back realm. I mean, obviously the big dog is Saquon Barkley, but Sonny Michel is kind of that guy you can find in like the 3rd, 4th, 5th round of an NFL draft that ends up being your starter in like a year.
I can see that. Yeah.
So I definitely like I said, I had nothing against Saquon, who I think is fantastic, but Sonny Michel is the kind of guy that I would rather my team draft and use that high pick on somebody good. But we talked a little bit. I mean, speaking of wide receivers, we talked about Calvin Ridley a little bit. Yep. He projects to be the number 1 guy. Not a very big guy, but quickness, route running, like just an excellent do-it-all wide receiver that I would love to have on my team. Would make sense on like an Eagles kind of thing. Definitely not a jump ball guy necessarily, but he's got all the other qualities you're looking for. Antonio Brown would be one of my guys I think he matches up well with in terms of intelligence. It's not a heavy wide receiver year this year. A couple guys kind of fell off the wagon. I think the one guy that a lot of people thought was going to be really good that took a half step back was Christian Kirk of Texas A&M, an absolute burner, but definitely didn't have the season that a lot of people expected of him. James Washington was probably the best receiver in college football this year. Don't know if it's a spread thing or not. So he's a little more running back like, doesn't have that sudden speed. So he's fast, but he needs time to build it up. He definitely needs to be in the right offense, I think, to really have a shot. One guy to really look out for, though, you might have seen him play, Deion Kane of Clemson, 6'2", big physical guy. He has a little bit of like a drops issue. So if you can fix that, I loved what I saw out of him in terms of his ability to cut in and out. So there's a guy that I think
could surprise people after he gets drafted. His
Nelson
teammate
Aguilar figured it out.
Right. His teammate Hunter Renfrow, the one that caught the pass to win the championship last year.
Yeah.
He looks like a Julian Edelman type that I think if you need a slot receiver to grab, but he'll be a later pick. But really not as deep as we've seen the last few years, I don't think.
Is he later picked to the Patriots just because that's their MO?
Right? That's what you'd probably think. The one guy that's going to rise up draft boards
is they waiting for lacrosse players?
Well, probably he might have played a little lacrosse. I'm not sure. Well, Hunter Renfrow is also a baseball player. Maybe they're the same person. The other guy, Cortland Sutton, 6'4" out of SMU. He might be the hell of a player. So there's another guy that I
think good
think,
offense.
Yeah, and I mean you're 6'4", you can jump probably. I would assume. I haven't seen a ton on him. I've never seen him play, but I've told from what I've read about him, I mean, he's kind of that guy that you're going to see like a Josh Allen at quarterback. He's going to shoot up draft boards this year at that kind of size.
Yeah.
So there's a couple other guys that'll come out, but a lot of this is now going to come down to they break down the film of how they do outside of just their system, and that's really where a lot of this comes into play.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't know if maybe you know what though. I say it's not as deep, and then a month or two from now, well, you know what? Actually, this class is way better than we thought they were going to be. Yeah. So that's kind of my wide receiver breakdown. That's an early look at it.
We said that about the Goff Wentz quarterback class, and look how that's turned out.
Yeah. At first, everyone was like, "Goff's the worst quarterback ever at first round." Now he was in the playoffs this year, so definitely very, very, very obvious there. It sometimes takes players a couple years too. But Calvin Ridley, he's day one step in.
Well, we didn't even mention this. We mentioned the touchdown catch, but that was his first or second catch, and he hadn't really done anything up until then, and he took the game over like that. I mean, if you have that type of playmaking ability, like those type of intangibles, in this day or this age of advanced statistics and everything, those still matter. Those types of abilities.
Yeah. And I think about it, he's playing at Alabama. Think about it. Running quarterback, limited passing game. They don't spread it out as much. And he still had just under 900 yards receiving, which is for Alabama is pretty good. Think of, you probably didn't know a lot about Julio Jones in college unless you watched Alabama. He wasn't the number one receiver. Maybe, but Amari Cooper, did you know a ton about Amari Cooper when we did because we watched football, but the casual fan isn't going to tell you who Amari Cooper was, and he's turned out, I know he did bad year this year, but to be a very great receiver. I think Calvin's a little less physical than Amari, but same. You know what I think actually at the better, because Antonio Brown's just so elite. How about Emmanuel Sanders? So that suddenness, great hands, rounding, but a little because Calvin's a little smaller. He's a little smaller of a frame. So maybe that would be. And by the way, I'm a huge Emmanuel Sanders fan. He might be a free agent, in which case the Eagles should jump on that. But anyway, another time to discuss the Eagles.
You think they're made of money?
Well, look, I mean, I think so. I mean, I've been to enough games to see how much money they move.
Not the Phillies. They're not the Phillies.
Well, the Phillies need to spend some money. Well, okay, never mind. Wrong road. That's the perfect segue. So speaking of our birds. They're on this week.
We got some playoffs this week.
The first game, the first slate, and they're underdogs. Oh, it hurts. It hurts so much.
Look, hey, the public is moving the line. It opened at -4 for the Falcons. It's now -3, or is it 3.5? It was -3 at one point.
I have adjusted 3. I have adjusted 3. The shame of it is that
the public really likes the Falcons, is what that's telling you. Yeah, we miss him. I miss Carson. Oh,
but I mean, we haven't really discussed this. Of all things, well, maybe it's just because I don't talk about a lot of people. Because what? Give me your thoughts. What do you think it's acceptable that we are an underdog at home as the number 1 seed in the NFC? And technically, I think we're number 2 in the NFL. I think the Patriots beat us out in that. Whatever ranking that is. So
I mean overall seeding?
Right. I think technically overall I think the Patriots have, but it doesn't matter. What do you think it's did you think it was disrespectful to put that as our line?
I don't, simply because I've watched the Eagles post Wentz, And further, unbiasedly, and just knowing how we mentioned it with the line moving and what the public does and how markets move, if you put the Eagles even as a half a point favorite, so many people would jump on the Falcons plus a half a point or even at pick them that it would move to the Falcons to being favorites because Vegas doesn't want to give money away. You have to remember
that. I understand that.
Now, that being said, I did see when this first happened, I need the specific numbers, but it's not necessarily a kiss of death being the higher seed with and an underdog. It's never happened with the 1 seed.
Okay.
But it's not the worst thing in the world. The other thing, Matt Ryan and the Falcons. Matt Ryan has a decent record against the Eagles. The Falcons have a terrible record against the Eagles in the playoffs. I think their last matchup being the 2004 NFC Championship game. So at least ride that. The crowd's going to be in it. First playoff game for the Eagles in 4 years since 2014, the first Chip Kelly year. It's an interesting line, especially at 3 points now at a field goal. Obviously, that's how the Eagles lost their last playoff game. They just didn't get they couldn't get Drew Brees off the field.
Right.
To answer your question though, is it disrespectful? Let it motivate you then. Lane Johnson came out and said it today. We're not the Browns. Just stop treating us that way since Carson got hurt. If they disrespect you, then just use it. That's what the Patriots basically trick themselves into doing every week, even though they've been incredible for 17 years. And Alabama does it every single year, and we've already talked about them. Just
right, I'm with you
for
there.
Motivation is what I say.
Yeah, I could not be more with you there. How is it disrespectful? If you look at pure football, I think they from what they showed last week and having their quarterback, they should be the favorites. Nothing wrong with that. It's a Vegas line. It doesn't mean that they're not going to win. What are your keys for the Eagles in this game? Give me your 2 keys that you think is going to lead us to a victory.
All right, 2 keys. Basically, if I really want to be the contrarian, the secondary needs to play well because they play like shit.
Right.
And Nick Foles needs to just be somewhat okay. It's probably the best I can say because he's been shit. He's looked terrible, and they've gone 2-1, except for the Giants. The Giants, he looked fine. He looked terrible against the Raiders, looked terrible against the Cowboys, and he only played a quarter, but still. Those would be my top 2, the running backs and the front 7 being, if it's business as usual for them, they'll keep it close. That's why I still think the 3-point line is fair and a good number.
Okay.
For the secondary, though, it's containing Julio Jones, especially if they really are dependent on the passing game, which it probably can be considering where that running game can go one way or the other for Atlanta. The Eagles running backs, though, if they can get it going early, it could open things up for Foles and maybe take some pressure off him. So I know you asked for 2. Those are 4. If I had to rank them, I'd probably say slow down Atlanta's run game and get yours established first. But I think it's more important of the first 2 I brought up. Go secondary, Foles, our running game, contain their running game.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think they're all great points. I would say that my 3 keys: score early. Yeah. You need to score a touchdown, whether it's the first or second drive of the game. Some kind of this defense, the Falcons defense, probably isn't going to give you a lot big play wise. So you're going to need to use. I take the tape out of the first drive of the Cowboys game. We ended in a very poor Torrey Smith drop, but the key with that drive was a West Coast style. Hit a couple quick passes, make a couple good runs, and just move up the field. So score an early touchdown to set the tone. And we say this all the time. We need Fletcher Cox and Timmy Jernigan and then Brandon Graham on third down to bring inside pressure.
because if you can bring inside pressure, you get Matt Ryan to have to move off his spot. He's not that he's not athletic, but he's better at moving around the pocket than out of the pocket. So get him. You got to bring the inside pressure, flush him out. That takes away Julio Jones because now you've got Ryan scrambling. That to me, and then I think the one other thing I would say, and it's probably almost underrated, but we need to make a couple special teams plays. Whether it's a long field goal, great punt coverage, or a great punt or kickoff return, that's to me, this is what that game's going to come down to. So I think a lot of this falls on your two big boys in the middle, a quick touchdown, and then special teams. To me, that wins you the game because if you get pressure from the inside, there's not maybe other than Russell Wilson, nobody else is going to be able to stop pressure up the middle. So he was an All-Pro, Fletcher Cox. He needs to come prepared to be an All-Pro at home and really show us what he's made of here. So excited to see that for sure.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. That's absolutely for sure. In a way, it's kind of nice that it's the first game of the weekend because I can just get it out like the Band-Aid, pull it off one way or the other. You just want to know. Prolong. If it was the Sunday afternoon game, holy shit! Oh my god, I wouldn't be able to enjoy the
Saints Vikings game. Oh, sorry.
No, I said if the Eagles were. Yeah, if you flip-flop the two games.
And I'm with you.
I wouldn't be able to enjoy the Saints-Vikings or any of the AFC games, even though I think Saints-Vikings is by far the best game on the schedule. But, oh, my God. The Birds are – I said it last week. I get a heart attack every single time they've been playing all year, and that's before Carson got hurt. It's only gotten worse since the injury, and it's going to be at its worst this weekend.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be – I'm going to spend a lot of time being upset, concerned, the whole 9 yards. Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yep.
So are you taking them or not? What's your pick?
Oh God. Oh, I feel like it should be like the Herb Street on College Game Day. We can't pick them because we're too invested.
Okay, look, that's fine. No. You know what? Don't tell me anything. We're not going to pick for or against our team. Let's just jump to the next game.
Yep. Okay.
Titans visiting the Patriots. Weather forecast for that game: 8:15 start, 56 degrees, and it looks like rainy. New England's
Foxborough.
New England's a 13.5-point favorite in the playoffs. I know how good they are, and I know how bad the Titans are supposed to be. That's a huge line to take in a playoff game. Now, apparently the Titans are saying that that Brady doesn't have anything. They're going to come. They're bringing it, which to me is a horrible idea. Why you would ever say that Tom Brady, is over or underrated. But what do you think? I mean, do you really feel like they're just going to blow them out, or?
Yeah, so on paper, it looks like they should. DeMarco Murray's not playing, although I think they're better without him. I think we talked about this before, but I think Derrick Henry is the running back of the future. I think he's better. He's a little more dynamic. Marcus Mariota, though, against that defense, and to quote our good buddy Greg the Prophet Piatelli, they don't blitz in the preseason. They let that build up throughout the season, and we've seen that defense for New England get more and more dynamic. Even if Matt Patricia is leaving, he's got a job to do. Do your job, Bill Belichick. And I think they can really contain him. He got a couple of his guys involved last week. Most notably being himself with the touchdown pass to himself. But Eric Decker got involved a little bit with three catches and a touchdown. And that's kind of been their MO, though, with Tennessee. It's one of their numerous receivers has a great game and everybody else does nothing, whether it's Delaney Walker, whether it's Eric Decker, whether it's anybody else on that team. There's only one guy. It's not even that's the favorite target that just does well. So, I mean, I think the Patriots get it done at 13.5. I think 2 touchdowns is just about right. But with the rain, don't count them out or don't count out the line. I think the Patriots win easily, but
Yeah.
The cover is another story with the rain.
Right. Well, I think a couple things. I think people are forgetting that the Patriots will be getting looks like a fully healthy. Chris Hogan will be back. Dion Lewis, James White. Who am I forgetting? Dion Lewis, James White, Rex Burkhead, Mike Gillisley, whether he's active or not, all appear that they'll be coming back healthy. So this will be the healthiest that offense has been in quite some time.
You just need Dion Lewis, though, to be honest.
Well, right. No, but he's fit. But here's the difference. So they use the other two. They use the three patch kicking backs all over the field. And so when you get Hogan and Cooks and Gronk and then a combination of the other three on the field, that's a lot of dangerous weapons that you're tossing around. The Burkhead and Lewis and White can pretty much line up as a receiver at this point. They're that talented. So they're going to be coming at the Titans with a lot of different stuff. I don't know if they can. 13.5 in the playoffs is a lot. And the Titans obviously beat the Chiefs and at home.
That's the thing. It's the playoffs, so you don't want to.
Right. So to me, I like the Titans to cover but lose in this game. I think the Patriots win. I don't think it's a barn burner at the end, but I think it's by like 10 points or 9 points or 13.
It's a bad beat, or do you think it's just that it stays around a 10 point?
It just stays at a 10. It's a playoff game. So I just think it stays around that. Could I see the Patriots blowing them out? Absolutely. But I think if I was putting money on it, I'd say
we had that last year where the Patriots were it was the same thing. They were 17-point favorites over the Texans, and they did cover.
Right. Which is amazing.
They know how to get it done in the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm going to stay with them covering it just because they really get this shit done. But picking them plus 13 is not a bad pick. Or the Titans plus 13.
No, I think this definitely go either way though.
Yeah, but we stay in the AFC. Moving to Sunday, 1:00 game. The Jaguars playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, returning to the scene of the crime. Where
what a crime that was!
Was it week 6? That Big Ben threw 5 picks against this great Jacksonville defense, but an offense that really did not show up last week against the Buffalo Bills. So I think with Pittsburgh coming in as a 7.5-point favorite, I think that's pretty good. Especially because you've seen since then the emergence of Juju Smith-Schuster. You've seen the one thing is Antonio Brown. He has been practicing and should be healthy. Even without him, they've done pretty well with Juju. Jesse James has had a pretty great year. Shout out to JSB, our boy, who called him a year early in a non-keeper fantasy league, but his guy from his high school. Great tight end for them. I just think too, Blake Bortles didn't have a good first start at the playoffs, and I think going back up, especially to Pittsburgh, it's that's tough to do. I think 7.5 is a good line. I think Pittsburgh wins by about 10.
I like that as well. I just think the Jaguars don't have enough on offense. I think it's a brutal game. 21 degrees in Heinz Field. We don't know Antonio Brown what he's going to look like.
Exactly.
If he's playing. I mean, that's all up in the air. So I like them to cover. I like that 10-point as well. I can't go away from that. Just don't think there's enough this year for the Jaguars. They're definitely a team. I think this is the kind of thing where this is 2 stars are flying through the air, and the Steelers star is going down. The Jaguars star is going up, but they haven't met yet. But the problem with this game is these Jags will probably beat up Big Ben to the extent where next week against the Patriots is going to be a tough turnaround for this team. I think it's going to cause a problem.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. Calais Campbell can only, and as big as Big Ben is, he can only get hit so many times at his age. Right. So interested to see how he holds up in this game. But they just have a little bit too much offensively and just enough defensively, I think, to quiet the Jags down. But it's gonna be a good game. I like the 10-point game. I like it as like a late touchdown to get him up by 10, and then Blake Bortles just doesn't have enough time to do anything, kind of deal. So that's what that's my choice there, which I think leads us into, in terms of star power. Well,
it's weird because this, is Case Keenum a star? But I think at this point, not a star, but he's definitely a pretty good player. The Saints-Vikings game in a dome, I know it's in Minneapolis, but in a dome at 4:40 on Sunday, that's going to be a really fun matchup.
Yeah.
Minnesota still opens up as a favorite, 4.5 points. I think that's a lot for Minnesota.
Yeah.
Seeing what I saw from the Saints, I mean, I think when I watched the Saints play the Panthers just said, you can't run it on us. So Ingram and Kamara struggled in the run game, and Drew Brees is still Drew Brees, and he tore it up. So the Vikings have a better defense than the Carolina Panthers. Not by a lot, but a better defense. Definitely a couple better corners. They're better in the secondary, but still, the Saints don't have – they have 2 elite running backs and an elite wide receiver and one of the most underrated players in the league, Michael Thomas, who I watched play and thought was spectacular.
Yep.
And a pretty good speed burner in Ted Ginn Jr. I think this is going to be a tough game for both teams. I like the Saints in this game. I just think this is their year.
I do too.
So I'm going to take them to beat the Vikings.
I am too. I'm taking them outright. I agree with you. You hit the nail right on the head. I think, and we've talked about this at length a number of times, but the 2 awesome running backs they have that just brings completely different skill sets that complement each other so well, and Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, I think open it wide up for Drew Brees. And good call on Ted Ginn Jr. He had a good game last week against Carolina with a touchdown. I think he could do well. He's been very inconsistent throughout the year, but I think that helps it out for Michael Thomas. He does incredibly well this week. And, if I was New Orleans, I just basically squat your claim for the Super Bowl. Just get, maybe just tell your Airbnb to hold down the fort for you. Because I think, the crazy thing is that they were 4-4 on the road throughout this year. So that means they were 7-1 in the Superdome. Obviously, if this all works out, we'll talk about it next week. But I think you're right, though. And a quick, just kind of a aside, I read an article on ESPN that was kind of every team's best, ranking 1 through 8, the clearest path to the Super Bowl, and what can help it make it clearer for you. And aside from the Patriots, 6 of the 7 were the Titans beat, or I guess 5 of the 6. The Titans beat the Patriots. Obviously, the Titans would need to win.
Right.
But the Titans and the Saints answer is that the Jaguars beat the Steelers. Surprisingly for the Patriots, it wasn't. I think it was that the Vikings beat the Saints.
Okay.
Which just tells you kind of where the Saints, I think, were number 2 behind. Forget the exact order, but it just kind of tells you where everybody thinks of both obviously the Patriots, the Steelers, and the Saints, kind of as your 3 teams looking into it. Which, it's no surprise in the AFC. It might be a bad omen that the Saints were crowning him too early. But that's why you play the game. That's why.
Exactly.
That's why you show up on any given weekend day. I can't say Sunday because we have football on some Saturday this week. I don't know what accent that was, but but I'm excited for it. Go Birds. I think we have a couple minutes before we got to wrap it up. So I know we talked Sixers last week. I want to get your thoughts. I wrote my Eastern Conference kind of recap of the first half last night. Go check it out, thunderboltsports.com if you haven't. But Matt, I want to get your thoughts on the Flyers before we wrap things up here.
Yeah, they started out hot, and everyone's like, "Wow, this team looks real." I'm sure people know this a lot, but they started out hot. This team's locked in; they're for real. And then they took that big 10-game swoon. It's 10 non-wins. Didn't mean they get points, but wins. Excuse me. Blah, blah,
well, there were losses. Some were overtime losses.
Some were overtime losses. Others were losses. But I'm saying it wasn't 10 pure losses because overtime losses are still a point. I know, to your chagrin. Then they kind of got back on a hot streak. They're just doing what this is the problem with this team, and I haven't been able to fully figure it out. They just played whatever the competition is.
Yep.
That's
the perfect way to put it.
Right. I went down and saw them play the Islanders in a thrilling 5-4 victory. Yep. They just got thumped by the Pittsburgh, which was one of the worst games of the year. They come back and look like a high-powered octane offense. As we expected, their defense is taking lumps.
Yep.
But they're a point out of a wild card spot.
Yep.
1 point. With 2 games in hand, by the way, to Pittsburgh. Not too bad. Their goal differential is positive. Their positive 1 goal differential. By the way, Pittsburgh's -12. That's
Pittsburgh's been. I didn't mention this in the blog post. They've been terrible on the road, and they had a lot of blowout losses at the beginning of the year. So the goal differential is a little, I guess, deflated or a little inflated from the beginning of the season. I guess deflated because it's negative, but on the road, the Flyers game notwithstanding, they can be suspect. A lot of teams in the NHL have been this way this year. Home ice advantage has been more important than ever. You hit the nail on the head, though. They've played up and down to the competition. One game you did not mention, but we've talked about before. They beat Tampa Bay in Tampa, which is huge. Tampa Bay has lost a total of 10 games. I think they've lost 8 regulation and 2 in overtime or shootout. A couple other things.
By the way, that was after a 3-2 loss to Florida. I think they come up with a 3-game losing streak to beat Tampa Bay. This is what I get confused about with this.
A couple other things to note. You mentioned the games in hand. They also, all of their wins are not in a shootout, which my hatred of shootouts aside is important for tie-breaking standards. It's the next one outside of games played, hence games in hand being important. And obviously points. So the fact that the Islanders have 3 games that were won in a shootout reduces their row regulation plus overtime wins. The Hurricanes was one I mentioned in the blog post. I think they're basically pushing up on their ceiling. Just really the thing for the Flyers, they're very young. They kind of need to just get consistent. We need to see the full extent of Hackstall's young development. That's why Hextall hired him. So we need to see that. But I mean, a couple things to be excited about with their youth. The fact that there's a ton of prospects still in the pipeline, both in the AHL, in the ECHL, as well as even younger than that. Big shout out to Carter Hart, the player of the game in the gold medal game of the World Junior Championships for Team Canada. He's a goalie, so the goalie situations looked better now that Neuwirth's back. I said that in my post that I think Brian Elliott just playing every day, a little tough to have him there.
Yeah, it's not necessarily fair. Not to guys particularly of his age.
Yeah, they're both basically 1A starters. They're not full-fledged starters. That's always been the Flyers' issue, but it can be very optimistic. It's tough to see them getting into or out of the wild card if they were to make the playoffs. The best thing for them, though, might be to go play Tampa Bay and roll the dice there because the other division isn't that good.
Right. Boston. It's kind of this is we've talked about this. I hate this divisional setup because we're getting screwed here. I mean, we are technically third to last in our conference, in our division, and yet we're 2 out of a wild. We would be easily in the playoffs in the Atlantic.
Well, they're the 10. Yeah, we wouldn't be. We'd still be behind the Maple Leafs.
It's top 3. I'm sorry,
it's top 3. It's not top 4, which is what it was in the 70s and 80s. That's why they did this when they decided to change it up. It was to give a nod to it. Which I think and probably for the reasoning for giving Florida and Tampa Bay to the Atlantic was to maybe even it out, but we really haven't seen it. Detroit really fell apart pretty much as soon as they moved in there. Boston's been up and down. They made the playoffs a number of times. Ottawa, I don't know what the hell happened to them. Same with Montreal.
Yeah. We're right there.
I mean, well, they should be right there. Points-wise, they look like they are in the standings. Points-wise, they're far out of it. The Flyers are right there, despite being in 7th place of 8 in their division.
Right.
So, I don't know. We'll see what happens if they do indeed the NHL now. It does indeed expand to 32. If it goes 8, 8, 8, 8, or if they just decide to bring it back to 16, 1 through 16 and seed them that way.
Mm-hmm. Claude Giroux's second in points, tied for second with a lot of people, but very impressive there. Sean Couturier's top 5 in goals. So
Voracek is up there in assists.
He is.
Ghost is having a huge bounce back here. I was going to say,
to me, it's Ghost and Provorov that to me show that we have a shot at the playoffs this year.
Yeah, Provorov isn't the points, but he's playing out of his mind.
He doesn't do anything wrong. He just makes veteran plays as a second-year guy, basically. So, and we really haven't seen anything explosive out of Nolan Patrick. Young.
Or Travis Konecny.
Well, yes. So when I watched that Islanders game, I saw Konecny just does a lot of things, little things. He's kind of a gnat to bigger players. He won a fight when I was at the game, but he hasn't fully seen that scoring and point touch yet. Nolan Patrick looks a little more invisible right now, but rookie coming off an injury, I think he's still kind of finding his footing. But I got to tell you, I don't know if we need to make a move. I would prefer we don't. Just let it happen. Wow. This is supposed to be kind of a rebuilding year, so that's where I am with them. But, it's going to be exciting, and they're fun to watch right now. Very creative, more so than we've seen in recent years, so pretty fired up for that one. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Obviously, we'll be right there between my tickets and the number of games you also get to go to. We'll certainly be covering that. Make sure to follow us on our social media. Check it out with both that, our basketball coverage, obviously the playoffs. But that'll do it for us this week. Again, go follow us on Twitter, ThunderBLG, Thunderblog Sports is the Facebook and Instagram handles, thunderblogsports.com, of course, the website. Matty D, thank you as always. I know you're going to be going skiing next week, so we will not be with you. Working on Greg for it, but stay tuned on that. Enjoy your trip, my friend. I almost said my trip, but
it's all right.
I'm going to be stuck here in Philly.
That's right. I'm sure we'll be too bad for you here.
Oh yeah. Maybe we can all live vicariously through you. Who knows?
Yeah, most people do have to. They don't have a choice. So.
Well, that's true. Not everybody can be the fake Matty D.
Okay, all right. But, we better end this quick. You know what I'm saying?
All right. Well, before Matt kills me, that's going to kill it for us. For my buddy Matt DiStefano, I am the G-Man. Have a good night, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Go Birds.